in the heart of a forgotten land, where the wind howled through dead forests and the earth trembled beneath the weight of ancient secrets, there lay a village too small to be marked on any map. The people there lived in perpetual fear of the one thing they knew was real, Medusa. She was a legend, a whispered nightmare in the dark. The villagers spoke of her only in the dead of night, their voices trembling with terror. They said she had once been a goddess, radiant and beautiful, loved by all who gazed upon her. But her beauty became her curse, for envy turned the gods against her. They transformed her into a monster, a creature whose hair was writhing snakes and whose eyes could turn any living being to stone. Centuries had passed since the last reported sighting, but the village was never free from her curse. For every child born, for every person who left the village and returned, Medusa's presence lingered like a shadow. It was said that her stone gaze could reach beyond the confines of her lair and turn any unwitting traveler into a lifeless statue. One fateful evening, a curious traveler named Eric, drawn by the rumors, ventured into the village. He had heard tales of Medusa's gaze and was determined to see if they were true. The villagers, huddled in fear, begged him to leave, warning him that even seeking her out could bring death. But Eric, filled with a foolhardy desire to conquer the impossible, ignored their pleas. He ventured into the desolate woods, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. As night fell, he came upon an old temple, half buried in vines and rock. This was where she was said to dwell. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of decay, and strange, serpentine hisses echoed through the shadows. There, at the center of the temple, stood Medusa. Her once beautiful face was now a twisted mask of rage and sorrow, her eyes glowing with an unnatural, baleful light. The snakes on her head writhed and hissed, their scales shimmering in the dim moonlight. Eric, unarmed and unprepared, stood frozen in terror, unable to look away. "Why have you come?" Medusa's voice was a chilling whisper, a sound that seemed to come from the depths of the earth itself. Eric, his breath shallow, forced himself to speak. "I came to see if the stories were true, to see if your gaze could truly turn someone to stone." The room seemed to darken, the air growing heavier with every word. Medusa's lips curled into a bitter smile, and the snakes on her head hissed louder, their tongues flicking in the air like flames. "You think you can challenge me?" she asked. "You, who have no idea of the weight of the curse that binds me. You seek to steal what little freedom I have left." Eric felt his heart race, his legs frozen in place. The stories had been true. Her eyes shone like pools of molten gold, and he knew that one glance could end him. But in that moment, something within him snapped. He wanted to see her, truly see her, to understand the monstrosity that had twisted her into this form. He couldn't help himself. He lifted his eyes to meet hers. Medusa's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. Time hung suspended in that single instant. Then pain. A searing, terrible pain exploded in Eric's mind, as if his very soul was being pulled from his body. His flesh began to stiffen, his breath slowing, his limbs becoming cold and heavy. His vision blurred, and he could feel his body turning to stone. But as his final breath left him, he saw something in her eyes. Not hate, not malice, but sorrow, an ancient, unbearable sadness. Her tears, glittering like diamonds, fell to the ground as her snakes writhed in agitation. Eric's last thought was not of fear, but of pity. Medusa, the once beautiful goddess, was a prisoner of her curse, forever bound to a temple of stone. As the final moments of his life slipped away, Eric realized that the true horror was not the monster she had become, but the one she had always been, a goddess trapped in the form of a beast, her fate sealed by the jealousy of gods long forgotten. And when the villagers came the next morning, they found him among the statues, his face frozen in an expression of regret. None of them knew his story, nor the truth of Medusa's curse. They only saw the stone man, another victim of the monster in the temple.